Our story starts with a young man. This young man had a large snake tattoo on his neck, slithering upward to his shaved scalp. The frightful tattoo was one of many. On his forearms, for example, were even more disturbing tats. And these were not the kinds of artsy tattoos you see on suburban middle-aged dads who drive minivans. These were crude, Sing Sing type of tattoos, done with the ink from a Bic pen. The young tattooed custodian entered the fellowship hall during women's Bible study hour one Wednesday morning, pushing a mop. He quietly went about his business, cleaning the church, listening to rap music on his earbuds. The old women in the Bible study group were seated in a semicircle of folding chairs. They stared at the illustrated man with slack-jawed horror. These were church ladies with hearing aids, Coke bottle glasses, and quilted Bible covers. These were decent women who wore Chanel No. 5 and lily white keds. Who was this man? "Is that our new custodian?" asked one old lady in pearls and polyester. "Surely not," whispered another. "He looks like an inmate." He was indeed a former prisoner. The young man had just gotten out of county lockup. The church hired him to do odd jobs, sweep floors, vacuum the sanctuary, and chlorinate the baptismal. He was a good worker and a nice guy. There had been complaints about him, of course, lots of complaints, but none were based on his character, just on his appearance. Which brings us to Karen. Karen is 74 years young. She has been attending this 200-member church in the Piney Woods since infancy. Her husband used to be the treasurer before he died. For years, Karen has headed up the committee that produced the annual the annual cookbook on the mimeograph machine. Karen was church secretary once. She has a key to the sanctuary. She arranges the flowers. She does everything but preach the sermons. After Bible study, Karen invited the young man to supper. Initially, he turned her down and said he didn't want to impose, but you do not turn Karen down. She's a church lady, and all church ladies wield spellbinding powers over the stomachs of mortal men. "I'll cook rice savory casserole," she said. Case closed. That evening, the young man was at her dining table, gorging himself on extra-large helpings of a casserole that was at least 82% butter. He ate enough deviled eggs to choke Cool Hand Luke. That evening, the young man was at her dining table. Sorry, I already read that. Once he finished eating, he and Karen began talking. He told her his story. He was trying to get his life together. He wanted to go to college. He was saving up to buy a car. He wanted to get married, have kids, a dog maybe. And before he left, Karen embraced him and invited him to Bible study. This took him off guard, but hesitantly, he agreed to come. The next Wednesday at Bible study, women's Bible study, the group was startled to learn that it had a new member. The tattooed young man was sitting in the semicircle among them. A quilted Bible cover was resting in his lap. "Ladies," announced Karen, "I'd like to introduce you to Michael, our newest member." Michael stood and introduced himself. Crickets. Over the following months, the women became fond of Michael. Actually, that's inaccurate. They flat out adored him. They brought him things. They cooked for him. They gave him truckloads of baked goods that were sugary enough to disable the human pancreas. Someone gifted Michael a used Oldsmobile. Another woman let him live in her garage apartment. Michael was often seen at the houses of these old women, helping with yard work, doing repairs, lifting heavy things, and cutting lawns. After a few years, Michael began facilitating the Bible study when Karen wasn't able to attend. Soon, he was even in charge of sending the prayer chain emails. But all good things have an expiration date, especially good things. Michael became sick. Very, very sick. And it happened fast. Cirrhosis of the liver and hepatitis C, they don't mess around. There was no coming back for Michael. One fateful Wednesday morning, he found himself lying in his hospital room, amidst blinking monitors and medical machinery. You can imagine his surprise when 14 white-haired women pushed their way into his room, unannounced. The ladies were all carrying folded chairs and quilted Bible covers. They all positioned their chairs in a semicircle around Michael's bed. What are you doing?" Michael asked weakly. "Well, what's it look like?" said the coiffed hair brigade. "It's Wednesday, and you're one of us." That day, the women prayed for him. They wept over him. They kissed his face like mothers. They arranged his flowers. He died a few weeks later. At his graveside service, 2 of Michael's pals attended. They were men cut from the same cloth as Michael had come from. They had inked forearms and denim clothing, steel-toed boots, and roughened hands. One of these young men asked Karen flatly, "Who were all these ladies at Michael's funeral? And how did they know Michael so well?" Karen answered by hooking arms with the young man. "Come to my house for supper," she said, "and I'll explain everything." Don't you just love that story? I posted something today that was shared by Toby Mack again, talking about the basic idea was that they will know we are Christians not because we try to change people's minds, but because we just love people. That's what we're called to do. We had a guy in our home church years ago. He also had been incarcerated multiple times, probably since he was a teenager, through his adult life. And he had more tattoos than anybody I have ever seen in my life. He would work in the yard, and he was such a hard worker. He loved being outside, and he did lots of yard work for us. Outdoor work was what he liked the most. We paid him, of course. Carlos was his name. He was the nicest guy. He just had some really bad habits. But I remember one day he was out working in the yard and it was hot, and he took off his shirt, and there wasn't like a single inch of his skin that wasn't tattooed, including all the way up his neck, on his face, all over his scalp. So to look at him, you would think like, what in the world is that guy doing in their yard? But we loved Carlos and his wife and his girls. We got connected up with him through Angel Tree. He had asked for some Christmas gifts for his 2 little girls. And so we had picked up the girls and their mom and had taken them to the Angel Tree luncheon. And we just established a friendship with them. And Carlos was a regular here at our house. Mel and Carlos would go out for lunch or breakfast. His favorite place to go was the buffet, where he could eat just about anybody under the table. He had a big appetite, but he worked really hard. And Mel would always introduce him as my brother from another mother. But I hope you have people in your life that don't look like you. Maybe don't act like you, don't sound like you, don't have the same type of background as you. And I hope you love them. I hope you love them the way Christ would have loved them, the way Christ loves you, the way God loves you. So anyways, that story came across my path today on the internet, and I wanted to share it with you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it makes you think. Take care, and God bless.